The clock on the wall of the cramped apartment didn't just tick. It felt like a countdown. Ilara sat at her kitchen table, surrounded by a sea of red, overdue medical bills, a final eviction notice, and the heavy, rhythmic breathing of her younger brother Leo, coughing in the next room. His surgery was scheduled for Monday. If she didn't have $50,000 by dawn, the hospital would cancel the slot, and Leo's time would officially run out. Desperation is a dangerous fuel. It makes you do things you'd never dream of. Ilara picked up her phone. She had one lead, her former boss, a sleazy real estate developer she knew kept offshore accounts. She had dirt on him, and tonight, she was going to use it. With shaking thumbs, she typed the message that would change her life. I'm done playing nice. I know about the Bluestone accounts. Give me the $50,000 for my brother's surgery tonight, or the press gets everything tomorrow. I'll meet you wherever you want. Just name the price. I'm yours for the night, if that's what it takes to save him. She hit send before her conscience could stop her. But as the delivered checkmark appeared, Ilara's heart stopped. She looked at the contact name. It wasn't her boss. In her panicked state, she'd clicked a contact buried at the very bottom of her list, labeled only as GV, a number she had saved years ago from a business card she found at a gala. GV didn't stand for her boss. It stood for Gabriel Vanguard, the ghost of Wall Street, a man who owned half the city and had a reputation for destroying anyone who dared look him in the eye. He wasn't just a billionaire. He was a predator. Ding. The reply came 10 seconds later, and it was 3 words that made the room spin. Price accepted. Room 402, the Vanguard Hotel, 30 minutes. Don't make me wait. Ilara realized she hadn't just sent a text. She had just sold her soul to the one man who never showed mercy. The rain didn't just fall. It attacked the glass of the private elevator as Ilara ascended to the 100th floor of the Vanguard Tower. Her heart hammered against her ribs, a frantic bird trapped in a chest of ice. When the doors slid open, she wasn't met with a bedroom. She was met with a boardroom of cold marble and silent, high-tech security. At the far end of the room, Gabriel Vanguard stood like a statue. He didn't turn. He was watching the lightning strike the Empire State Building, a glass of amber liquid catching the flash in his hand. You're late, Ilara, he said, his voice like velvet over a blade. 3 minutes in my world is the difference between a fortune and a bankruptcy. I'm here for the money, Gabriel, not a lecture, Ilara snapped, her desperation giving her a temporary mask of courage. You saw the text. You know the price. Let's get this over with. Gabriel turned slowly, and for the first time, Ilara felt the true weight of the man. His sapphire eyes didn't just look at her. They scanned her, calculating her worth like a stock. He walked toward her, stopping so close she could smell the expensive sandalwood and the faint scent of rain on his coat. You think I want your body? He let out a low, dark chuckle that sent a shiver down her spine. He tossed a heavy leather folder onto the marble table. I have a city full of models for that. I brought you here because you are a ghost. No social media, no scandals, no ties to my enemies. I don't want a night, Ilara. I want your identity. Ilara's breath hitched. What are you talking about? My board of directors thinks I'm a cold-blooded machine. To win the merger against Julian Thorne, I need to look human. I need a fiancé, a love story to sell to the press. He pushed the folder toward her. Inside was a check for $50,000, Leo's life in paper form, and a 50-page contract. 6 months, Gabriel whispered, leaning down to her level. You live in my estate. You wear the diamonds I choose. You smile when the cameras flash. You belong to the Vanguard name. In return, your brother gets the best heart surgeon in the world tonight. He gets a future. He gets to live. Ilara looked at the check. Then she looked at the contract. Clause 4.2. No contact with the outside world without supervision. Clause 7.1. Absolute obedience to the principal's schedule. She realized then that this wasn't a rescue. It was a hostile takeover. And if I refuse? Gabriel's eyes turned into shards of ice. Then you walk out that door, and by 6 a.m., your brother is removed from the surgery list. The choice is yours, Ilara. His life, or your freedom. The silence in the room was deafening. Ilara could almost hear Leo's ragged coughing in her ears. She picked up the heavy gold pen. The ink felt like black blood as she signed away the next 6 months of her life. Excellent, Gabriel said, snatching the contract before the ink was even dry. He didn't look at her with affection. He looked at her like he had just bought a winning racehorse. Arthur, take the future Mrs. Vanguard to the estate. Burn her old clothes. She starts her training at dawn. As the iron gates of the Vanguard estate, a fortress of limestone and armed guards, closed behind her, Ilara looked out the back window. The gold-plated handles on the doors didn't have locks on the inside. She had saved Leo's heart. But as she stepped into the silent, suffocating luxury of the mansion, she realized she had just walked into a prison where the bars were made of 24-karat gold. The silence of the Vanguard estate was louder than any scream. For 2 weeks, Ilara had lived in a world of gold-plated faucets and silk sheets that felt like sandpaper against her skin. Every morning at 5 a.m., a team of silent stylists transformed her. They painted her face, cinched her waist in couture, and draped her neck in diamonds that cost more than her apartment building. She was a masterpiece on display. But behind the painted smile, Ilara was rotting. Gabriel was a ghost in his own home. He never ate with her. He never touched her. He only watched. From the balcony, from the end of the long dining table, his sapphire eyes followed her every move like a predator tracking a wounded deer. On the 15th night, the curiosity became a physical ache. Leo was recovery in a high-security wing of the Vanguard Hospital, or so Gabriel claimed. Every time Ilara asked for a video call, the connection was unstable. Every time she tried to leave, the guards at the iron gates moved like stone statues, their hands resting on their holsters. "I'm not a fiancé," Ilara whispered to her reflection in the grand foyer's mirror. "I'm a hostage." Driven by a sudden, reckless fever, Ilara waited until the mansion fell into its usual midnight hush. She slipped out of her room, her bare feet silent on the cold marble. She knew where Gabriel spent his nights: the West Wing, the Forbidden Zone. The air grew colder as she approached his private study. The scent of expensive tobacco and old paper grew thick. The door was slightly ajar, a sliver of amber light spilling onto the floor. Ilara pushed it open. The room was a command center. Multiple monitors flickered with stock market feeds, blueprints, and her own face. Her heart stopped. On one screen, a video played of her in her old apartment, crying over the medical bills. On another, a thermal scan of her room showed her sleeping just minutes ago. "Looking for something, Ilara?" The voice was like a blade. Gabriel was sitting in a high-backed leather chair, a glass of dark liquid in his hand. He didn't look angry. He looked bored. "You've been spying on me," Alara gasped, her hand flying to her throat. "Since when? Before the text?" Gabriel stood up, his massive frame blocking the light. He walked over to a black obsidian desk and picked up a leather-bound ledger. He tossed it in front of her. "I don't believe in coincidences, Alara, and I believe in strategy." Alara's fingers trembled as she flipped open the ledger. Her name was there. Vance, Alara. Date of birth, social security, blood type. But it was the date of entry that made the room spin. Entry date, 6 months ago. "You had my number saved," Alara whispered, the realization hitting her like a physical blow. "You didn't accept my text because you were lonely or needed a fiancé. You accepted it because you were waiting for it." Gabriel leaned over the desk, his face inches from hers. The cold scent of sandalwood was suffocating. "Julian Thorne is a cockroach, but he's a predictable one. I knew you'd eventually go to him. I just made sure that when you reached for a lifeline, my hand was the only one there." "Why?" Alara's voice cracked. "I'm nobody. Why me?" "Because of the boy in the hospital bed," Gabriel said, his voice dropping to a dangerous rumble. "You think Leo is just a sick teenager who likes to sketch? Leo is a genius, a digital prodigy. 2 years ago, he accidentally hacked into an encrypted server belonging to the Bluestone Group. He didn't find offshore accounts, Alara. He found the evidence that my father's accident was an execution." Alara felt the floor move beneath her. Leo, her quiet, artistic brother, was a whistleblower? "The men who killed my family have been hunting for the boy who saw their secrets," Gabriel continued, his eyes glowing with a dark, vengeful light. "They would have found him in that slum of yours within a week. I didn't bring you here to save you. I brought you here to hide the evidence. Leo is the key to my revenge. And you are the only leash I have to keep him loyal." Alara stepped back, her mind racing. "So the contract, the diamonds, the fake engagement, it's all a lie? You're using us as bait?" "I'm using you as a shield," Gabriel corrected her, his grip suddenly tightening on her wrist. "As long as the world thinks you're my future wife, they won't look too closely at the brother recovering in the basement wing. But make no mistake, this isn't a romance. It's a war. And in war, shields are meant to take the hits." Alara looked at him, the man she had started to feel a strange, twisted gratitude toward, and saw a monster. "You're no better than Julian Thorne. You just have better suits." "Perhaps," Gabriel whispered, pulling her closer until her chest pressed against his. For a second, the mask of the ghost slipped, and she saw a raw and jagged pain in his eyes. "But Thorne would have discarded you after one night. I intend to keep you until every man on that list is in the ground." He let her go, turning back to his monitors. "Go back to your room, Alara. Put on the red dress for the gala tomorrow. Smile for the cameras. And remember, the surgeons can stop working just as fast as they started." Alara stumbled back into the hallway, the luxury around her turning to ash. She wasn't a guest in a mansion. She was the bait in a trap that had been set months ago. She walked back to her room, her mind on fire. She realized now that the GV contact wasn't a mistake. Someone had planted that number in her phone. Someone wanted her here. As she closed her door, a small folded piece of paper slid out from under her pillow. It wasn't there before. She opened it with shaking hands. The handwriting was messy, frantic. It was Leo's. "Alara, don't trust him. He isn't protecting me. He's looking for the Bluestone key I hid. If he finds it, he won't need us anymore." Look behind the mirror in the library. Run while you still can. Alara looked at the door. She looked at the cameras blinking in the corners of the ceiling. She had sold her soul to save a brother, only to find out she was a pawn in a game between two predators. And the brother she thought she was saving might be the most dangerous person in the house. The gilded cage had just become a killing field. The library was thick with the smell of ozone and gunpowder. Outside, the screech of tires and the rhythmic thud of flashbangs echoed through the Vanguard estate. The gilded cage was under siege. Gabriel stood over the unconscious Mrs. Sterling, his breathing ragged. He looked at the silver locket in Alara's hand, then at the blood staining her silk sleeve. For a man who had spent a decade feeling nothing, the sight of Alara wounded felt like a blade twisting in his own chest. "They're here," Alara whispered, her eyes fixed on the surveillance monitors. 12 black SUVs had breached the outer perimeter. Men in tactical gear, the elite cleaners of the Bluestone group, were swarming the lawn. Gabriel grabbed a heavy encrypted radio. "Arthur, status!" "They've cut the main power, sir." Arthur's voice crackled. "And they aren't here to kidnap anymore. They've been ordered to level the house. No witnesses." Gabriel looked at Alara. The cold, calculating ghost was gone. In his place was a man who realized his revenge meant nothing if it cost him the only person who saw him as human. "Alara, listen to me," Gabriel said, his voice urgent. "There's a tunnel behind the wine cellar. Take the locket. I'll hold them here." "No," Alara snapped, her hazel eyes flaring with a fierce brilliance. "If you stay, you die. And if you die, they'll find me anyway. We don't run, Gabriel. We fight." She pointed at the monitors. "Leo told me in the note. He didn't have the key, but he didn't say it was in the locket either. He said, 'Look behind the mirror.'" Alara reached into the vault again. Her fingers found a small, microscopic pinhole. Near, she pulled a diamond earring from her ear and jammed the post into the hole. Whir. A hidden compartment in the floor of the vault slid open. Inside was a military-grade laptop and a satellite uplink. Leo didn't just hack the Bluestone group, Alara realized, her voice trembling. He built their encryption. They forced him to do it. That's why he was sick. They were poisoning him slowly to keep him dependent on their medicine, so he'd keep coding for them. But Leo built a back door, the Phoenix Protocol. "The master key?" Gabriel asked. "No," Alara smiled dangerously. "The locket is the GPS trigger. If we take it to the roof, it connects to the satellite and broadcasts every Bluestone crime to every law agency in the world simultaneously. It's a suicide mission. Even when the roof is exposed to snipers." "Then don't let them look at the roof," Gabriel said, his eyes darkening with lethal intent. "I'll make enough noise downstairs to make them think we're escaping through the cellar. You go up." Gabriel grabbed her, pulling her into a kiss that tasted of salt and desperation. It wasn't a contract kiss. It was a promise. 5 minutes of chaos, then run for the sky. Gabriel vanished into the darkness. Seconds later, the sound of heavy weapons fire erupted below. Alara didn't wait. She grabbed the laptop and sprinted for the roof. The roof was a nightmare of wind and rain. Below, the estate was a battlefield. She could see the muzzle flashes of Gabriel's rifles as he took on an entire army alone. She reached the satellite array. Her fingers were numb as she plugged the locket in. Upload. 10%. 70%. Suddenly, a red laser dot appeared on her chest. Alara froze. A sniper was perched on the water tower. She didn't move. If she dived for cover, the signal would break. "Do it," she whispered. "Kill me." but the world is going to see. 99%. The sniper's finger tightened. Crack. A shot rang out, but Ilara didn't feel it. She looked up. The sniper fell forward. Standing on the edge of the roof, soaked in blood and rain, was Gabriel. He held a long-range rifle, his sapphire eyes glowing with protective fire. He hadn't gone to the cellar. He had been her guardian angel. Upload complete. Across the world, servers began to scream. Bank accounts froze. Arrest warrants were generated in real time. The Bluestone Group ceased to exist. Below, the mercenaries' comms went dead. Realizing the game was over, the survivors fled into the night. Gabriel dropped the rifle and walked toward Ilara. She collapsed into his arms. "It's over," Gabriel whispered. "The ghost is gone, Ilara." Ilara pulled back, reaching into her pocket for the $50,000 check from the first night. She tore it into pieces, letting the wind carry them away. "I don't want your money, Gabriel. The contract is over." Gabriel touched her cheek. "The contract is over, but I'm making a new offer. No lawyers, no cages, just us and Leo." "And the price?" Gabriel leaned in, his lips brushing hers. "Everything I am, for as long as I live." Epilogue. 6 months later, the sun was setting over a quiet villa in the south of France. Leo sat on the porch, healthy and tan, his sapphire eyes bright as he sketched the horizon. Inside, Ilara was reading, her feet tucked under her. Gabriel sat beside her, resting his head on her shoulder. They weren't the ghost of Wall Street and his fake fiancée anymore. They were just two people who had found light in the dark. "You know," Gabriel whispered, "I still have that first text you sent, the one to the wrong billionaire." Ilara laughed. "It was the biggest mistake of my life." Gabriel kissed her temple. "No, Ilara. It was the only thing you ever got exactly right." YouTube outro script. Visual montage of part 1 to 4 highlights. The text, the contract, the explosion, the final kiss. Voiceover. Sometimes a wrong number leads you exactly where you're meant to be. Ilara sold her soul to save her brother, but she found a love worth more than any empire. But tell me, do you think Gabriel knew about that text before it was even sent? If you loved this finale, hit like and subscribe. Next week, we start a brand new cycle, the Mafia's silent witness. You don't want to miss the first hook. Question of the day. If you were Ilara, would you have forgiven Gabriel for using you as a shield? Let me know in the comments. Check out the playlist for more stories of mystery and passion. Until next time, stay tuned.